Click the bell icon to get latest videos from Ekeeda.
Hello friends, we'll be learning certain details about how computers have been a significant boon when it comes to accountancy. Let's understand few details of it and we'll have to know how these specific computers have been a boon in understanding or probably enhancing accountancy. So when we speak about accountancy, we basically speak about recording transactions, recording all the data, and procuring those data and keeping them data safely stored. Now, when we talk about recording, storing, and procuring these data, we basically talk about one specific storage unit. Now, as a human brain, we do not have that much of memory power that we can record or probably understand and memorize all the data when it comes to future requirement or probably any kind of prior requirement. For example, your brain will be able to store certain data for a limited period of time, but what after that? So in such cases, we have bookkeeping and accountancy. However, all these books and records have been phased out because we have got computers in our life. Computers have made a significant change in any kind of accounting process. It has further enhanced the accounting process in such a way that any computer accounting system will be able to track, monitor, and procure the results for you in minutes or probably few seconds. This is a possible or probable thing that has enhanced or probably that has given you any kind of sound knowledge about how time consuming process can be converted into time saving and the results which will be like very efficient and accurate. So accountancy being arithmetically accurate and probably some part of it being a part of report sharing, these things have been signified or probably have been made simple and easy when the computers have arrived into the field of accountancy. Let's understand few more details which have been listed down here. We'll be mentioning this topic in two parts. First, the importance of it, and second, the features and limitations of it. So let's discuss the first part right now. Let's go ahead with that part. Now we'll go in detail about each and every part. Computers in accountancy. First, the point is significant development. Every accounting phase, right from the start, when we had bookkeeping records, or probably when we had records in kind of books, each of these records or each of these details were of very important nature because they used or probably the use of these specific records was for comparison. Now when we talk about comparison, we need previous year's data, previous year's data, and lot of the data from the previous years. So when we talk about previous year and current year comparison, it is very important for us that we get those data on time, those data are accurate, and probably the data which is accurate is stored in a specific manner which is readable and kind of usable in terms of future needs. However, when it comes to bookkeeping records or records being maintained in a book, there is no surety that the book will be safe and sound. It may have any kind of physical damage over it. So to protect that thing, we have computers as a boon on this specific field. So when we talk about computers in field, it has made a significant development in terms of accountancy phase. Accountancy has grown and developed in such a way that any record that we have to store will be stored in a small piece of unit, and that can be used for multiple number of years for future usage and can be used or probably can store n number of data when it comes to previous year's data as well. So this is a significant development that we were talking about. Let's go on to the next point, understand what are the details have been mentioned in here. Now, computers, they basically help you in solving a lot of complex computational and logical problems. Now, you as a human will have certain difficulties, certain restrictions when it comes to solving logical problems, when it comes to solving complex problems. But when it comes to solving computational or logical problems, computers do that in a jiffy. It is a small thing for a computer to solve any kind of logical or complex computational problems because that's a system which has been made with the reason for solving these kind of issues where a human brain cannot be functional at that point of time or cannot be functional in such an efficient way that the time will be also saved and the result will be also accurate. Although human brain is capable of solving all these problems, but the factors of time and arithmetic accuracy is at stake. Hence we rely on computers and these computers give out the output which is necessarily required for any organization when it comes to taking decisions in a fraction of seconds. So these reports which are being stored and processed further will be used for our reference. Let's go on to the third point which has been mentioned here. Now, this specific computers, or probably the use of computers, is for carrying out economic planning and forecasting issues. So, any forecasting issues that we have when it comes to any organization, we get those resolved with the use of these computers. Any economic planning, because we deal in a lot of numbers, so as a human brain or as a human, it becomes, or there are certain restrictions that we have to go through. In such cases, we find computers doing a job in a fraction of a second, or probably in such a time which we cannot even imagine, and hence all these complex issues like economic planning, like any kind of future forecasting, becomes very easy for a person who is on that job of deriving reports, of giving out outputs, and these specific outputs which are being given with the help of the computers eases his life and procures that specific job opportunity for any kind of person to involve himself into more productive activities other than recording data. So apart from recording data, if supposing you are a manager in any kind of bank and you have computers for usage, computers make your job so easy that much in such cases that you are able to go ahead and use yourself for analytical and productive data which can be useful for the organization when it comes to analytical and statistic data. Now when we talk about data or any kind of statistical data, we further go ahead with analysis of all these reports. So these reports which are predetermined or pre-planned according to the system software that we have, we further use these things for computer applications for the basis of accountancy, or probably for the further analysis of accountancy of any kind of organization. Let's further go ahead and understand which other points have been mentioned in here. MIS. The full form of MIS is Management Information System. This has been quite common since the past few years. Rather, we have been using management information system since very long. However, due to modern complex issues or computational and logical problems that we have, or the reason that we face these issues every now and then, it becomes very difficult for a human mind to go ahead and further analyze all these data, or probably huge number of data at one single point of time. Hence, the modern MIS is very useful, or probably becomes easy when it comes to usage of computers in terms of accountancy. In previous lessons, we have learned that accountancy is a part of bookkeeping system, or accountancy is an art of recording, maintaining records, or probably transaction, classifying, summarizing. Everything is a part of accountancy. So by default, we'll be dealing in lot many numbers. So what happens when you have lot many numbers, lot many accounts at one single point of time which has to be processed? A human won't be able to do that in a shorter period of time. He will take a lot of time to get these details processed, and the arithmetical accuracy again is at stake. However, when we use computers in such modern MIS management system, we further go ahead and ensure that all these data, all these high numbers, or all these abundant number of accounts that we have are processed in few minutes, and the reports are delivered to the management so that they can look at the data and go ahead with any kind of management decision that they have to make when it comes to development of the organization, or further increasing the capacity of any organization in terms of revenue, in terms of profit, in terms of gates, in terms of applications, in terms of staffing, hiring, etc. So whatever is required will be further analyzed in these data, or the use of computers is a boon. As I said, that computers have always been a boon when it comes to accountancy phase. So these are the details when we talk about significance of accounting. Let's further go ahead and understand what are the components that we have to deal with when it comes to accountancy, or probably computers in accounting. So the components that we have to deal with when it comes to computers in accountancy, we have basically six major components that we have to deal with. Six major but yet simple and easy to understand. So the first component has been mentioned down here, that is hardware. Now we'll further decide, or we'll further go ahead and understand how hardware as a component helps in terms of accountancy when it comes to computer usage in it. Let's go ahead and understand that point. Now, hardware basically is a part, or is a component which a computer uses for any kind of electronic or electromechanical processes. Now, electronic or electromechanical processes are further defined in terms of scientific language. However, we won't be deep diving into them. We'll just understand the upper cover of it, whereby we'll understand how these systems help or combine with the softwares that are available in the PC or the computer to further derive the reports for you. So, as you say, let's take an example of a human body. A human body has different kind of systems in it. These systems collaborate with each other, combine with each other, and then these individual systems help the whole human body to function. Like the brain, the heart, the lungs, the liver, the kidney, your movements of hands, everything is interrelated to the brain itself. Now, brain being the major part, that might be termed as the CPU. However, the other parts like the hand, the legs, the nose, the lungs, the heart, every part of it is interrelated to that. That's why these things are called the outer components of it. So something that is visible for you, something that you can actually touch, feel, is known as the hardware. So hardware will be the electronic or electromagnetic component which is used when it comes to the basis or the outer cover of any computer which is used for accountancy reports. So reports is just an output of it. However, to process that thing or to derive that reports, there has to be certain unit whereby we can input some data, process it via software, and go ahead with processing or giving out the results in terms of outputs or probably reports. So when we talk about these details, this is the first component. The examples of these components are keyboard, mouse, printer, processor. All these things are major hardware components of it. Now, when it comes to the CPU includes, that is the central processing unit, includes the motherboard, which is again an hardboard or probably the hardware instrument, the processor, the details, the RAM, whichever is used, whichever components that you can touch, you can feel, the tangible components are known as hardware. Let's go ahead and further decide or further understand which other units or which other components are available in these kinds of computer usage. Now, after hardware, as we have told, that a human body further goes into different kinds of process combination. That means within us we have lungs, within us we have our heart, and that specification works on the kind of systems that we have inside. Similar to this, similar to a human body, we have computer which works on software apart from the hardware design. So the outer cover is hardware. However, the softwares that are installed inside the coded series or set of instructions, like for example, if someone slaps you, you feel the pain. That is the set of instruction that you have inside you, because the skin feels a pain, your brain feels the pain of it, and that's the reason it shows on your skin. Similar to that, software is a set of instruction that is filled inside the hardware, which processes data according to the application codes. So we have certain codes. You go ahead, you type those codes, and you have those data. Any application, let's take you have your WhatsApp on your mobile phones. Now, any application, the moment you click on that application, it starts, correct? Now, when we talk about that application starting or the application starting up, it functions because the mobile phone has been set with such instructions that the moment you go ahead and put your finger on any kind of such application, it will first open up. So these things or these things, when you further go ahead and understand that these set of series or these coded series which are then installed in your mobile phone or in your computer, they go ahead and function according to the way they have been designed. So once this design runs or probably initiates a first step, then follows step by step process, which is known as a software. So software basically is the heart of any kind of hardware. Any kind of computer that you have, any kind of laptop that you have, any kind of any electronic device that you have works on a specific software, works on a specific set of codes. Now these things further is divided into different kind of analysis, which will be further going ahead and understanding. Let's go ahead. What do we have in softwares to understand? The first part. Now, out of those six types, the first type of software that we have is the operating system. This operating system is used or probably is the core of any kind of software. Every software has one operating system. the basic, like your Android. Your phone has Android as an operating system. Apple would have iPhones, or probably any specific phones that are used when it comes to software designing. These phones also have operating system in it. So iStores, Apple stores, or probably any kind of Play Store that we have, it is designed as per the basis of the operating system that we have. We have Linux, we have any kind of language that is used for production of these operating softwares. So operating software is nothing but the core which is used to run that specific software. Now, every software that is developed will be based on different kind of operating softwares. You need not go in detail of this, but just to make you understand that any kind of Android phone works on Android software. Any kind of any other phone like Windows will be working on Windows software. So the varieties of software depends on what is the operating system. That's the reason we have operating system as the core. Let's further understand what are the details have been mentioned in terms of software. Out of those six, we have understood one. Let's understand the second part. Utility programs. Now, when we talk about reports, we need to feed in data into softwares. So these softwares are the programs that we use to run as per the requirements of the organization. So basically, you must have learned about Tally. Tally is the basic software that is being used to record entries, to record journal entries, create ledger balances, create memos, invoices, and these further then go ahead and prepare the trial balance and balance sheet for you. So these are the utility programs that we were talking about. So these are the examples of utility programs that is used when it comes to any kind of softwares or accountancy, when it comes to computers in accountancy basis. Now, the third part of it, application softwares. Application softwares basically talk about different kind of applications that are supported, or probably that prove as a supportive application for any other major organization or any other major application. Let's take an example. When you have to process or perform any kind of reporting, you might require any kind of Excel reporting in that. So you have Excel sheets with you. You process that data into different forms or different applications. That specific data is used into different applications, and then any kind of sub application will be further utilized to enhance the major application itself, and both these combinations will give out your report. So just to give you an example, if you have a raw data with you, a raw dump of data with you, that data is further processed using the main application, and a sub application enhances the other components of that specific data, and then the usage of both these components further give you out the details which are required, or the details in the required format, or the output in the required format itself. So when we talk about application softwares, these are the supporting application softwares. Now let's understand the fourth part of it. Language processors. Now, as we know that India is a country where we have diversified languages, we have different varieties of languages. So when we talk about language processors, we have computers, we have been monitored or probably designed in such a way that you can monitor or probably track down the language which has been used. We have different languages in here. Now, I'm not talking about the linguistic language that we have. I'm talking about the software languages that is used. That is the coding language. So we have different languages, we have different applications and softwares that run on different languages. For example, C++, Java are the different applications that run on these languages itself. We have Oracle as a system, we have Linux as a system which runs on C++ or Java language. So these languages or these things have specific codings. Now these codings you need to learn, or probably you need to go ahead and understand these codings so that you can perform your own codes, you can fill in your own codes as per the requirement of your organization, and create a report which can be a tailor-made report basically. So for every tailor-made report, you need to know the language. That's the reason we have language softwares as well, which will teach you what kind of language is required or what kind of code is required to further go ahead and process that report in that similar manner. I hope that is very clear for you. Let's understand the new part of it. System softwares. So system basically doesn't run on its own operating system. It also runs on the supporting system. Like when we talk about different applications require different softwares as well. So it is not just one specific software which is required to run the whole computer application. there are different number of softwares that run at one single point of time. If at any point of time, if you have a laptop or a desktop with you, you can further go ahead and enter Control Alt Delete. This command will help you in understanding what are the tasks that are going on at the backhand side or the back side of the processor when at a point of time when you're working one specific application. For example, let's take if you're working on any kind of emails or any kind of paint options, at back of it there will be different applications which will be running at a point of time whereby the usage of that specific application is dependent on running of all these applications as well. So the moment you start with an application, the moment you start with any kind of different game on it, at that point of time there are different applications that pop up, and these pop-ups are actually the kind of system or the application softwares that we can call, which further go ahead and enhances the working or the functioning of the main software that you're working on right now. So that's the reason we have this kind of software as well. Now let's understand the last part of that. Connectivity softwares. Now, to share that data, you have to plug in certain data or probably certain item which can connect to the PC or the laptop and store that data in it, so that this specific data can be further transferred to any other system. When we have any kind of USB, so this is specifically a portable device that can be plugged into the system, and the data can be copied on that specific thing and can be further moved to any other system, because we need to have data in a portable manner. Similarly, we have other kind of microwaves or microwave technologies whereby we further go ahead and transfer the data electronically. Like for example, Bluetooth is one of the example where you can share files, or NSFW, where you can share files when it comes to any kind of technologies which is used on the basis of waves, electromagnetic waves, which can transfer the data from one system to another. So we have connectivity softwares as well like that. The best example would be ShareIt example. ShareIt is one of the software which is used for transferring files from your mobile system to your computers or laptops, and similarly vice versa. So there is no physical connectivity, as in you do not install your phone within your computer, you just connect it via USB, or you just scan these details. So you have a scanner in your phone, you scan the code or the QR code which is there in your PC, and automatically, due to that kind of connectivity that we have, it gets connected to your PC, and you can easily transfer data from one system to another, or from your mobile system to your desktop or laptop, any of it. So these are the connectivity softwares that we are using in our modern life. Now we'll understand which is the other component that we have when it comes to computer accountancy. Now, apart from hardware and software, a computer also requires three kind of people. These three kind of people have been highlighted down here. Let's go on each of them one by one. We have the first person named as system analyst. This specific person goes ahead and prepares or probably processes the data as per the system requirement. That means he designs the data processing system. This specific system analyst requires certain details from the organization as to what kind of reports they require. And accordingly, he goes ahead and designs the data processing system. That means the requirements that you pack with him, or the details or the specifications that you give with him, according to those specifications itself, he will process or he'll design one specific system for you, which will derive you or give you those reports as per the output that is required for your usage. Now he will further design or he will his design now he will further design all such data or all such processing systems as per your requirement itself. So you need to be very specific about what kind of data you require. Accordingly, that specific system analyst, that specific person who is a pro or is a champ when it comes to processing systems, will go ahead and further process that system for you, which will give you the reports as per your requirement. Now let's go on to the second person. He's the programmer. Programmer is a person who goes ahead and, as per the system data requirement designs, he further programs or codes those details. Now, coding is again learning languages according to one specific system. Now, that specific system will be running on certain languages. That language is made or probably is eased up by that specific programmer. He goes ahead and programs that specific design. Now, the design is the blueprint of it. This blueprint is then further evaluated and put down into a raw system, which is done by a programmer. Let's understand the definition or the written work that has been mentioned down here. Programmer is the person who writes down the programming codes so that the data processing system can work according to it. Now, every data processing system requires certain languages. This language is prepared by the programmer. That means he creates certain set of codes, he creates certain series of codes, which is then used in the data processing system to give you the desired output that you require. Now, let's understand the third person who is available in terms of people being a component of computers. The last person is the operator. First being system analyst, who further goes ahead and prepares the system or the design which is required. Second is the programmer, who enhances that program so that the system can work. And third is the operator, who is the end user of it. So the operator participates in further processing that data or extracting those reports. So the extraction of reports is done by the operator, the designing of system is done by the system analyst, and the programming codes is done by the programmer. So these are the three people who are the more important components when it comes to physical components or the 6 components of any computer software. Let's understand who are the other components or what are the other components when it comes to computers in accountancy. Now, once we have a hardware, once we have a software, once we have the people who will be working on it, there is a certain procedure that you have to follow. As we have understood, there is a set of series of codings or we have set of instructions. Now, when we talk about instructions, we definitely talk about procedures. There are certain procedures that you have to follow so that the desired output can be achieved. The desired end goal can be achieved in here, and the reports which are available will be flawless and arithmetically accurate and can be usable for any kind of decision making. So when we talk about procedure, we talk about three kind of orientation or three kind of methods. First being hardware, second being software, and the third being integral method. Now, when we talk about hardware, we'll first understand that hardware oriented means we need to understand what kind of details of the components that have been installed in the hardware so that whether that specific hardware will be able to perform the absolute requirement of the organization. So if any organization has given you the specifications as per the requirements, so you have to procure hardware according to that specification itself. For example, if you require a fast processor, you cannot go ahead with a 2 GB RAM. Similarly, if you require some specifications which are as per the requirement, let's take a basic example of a mobile phone. So if you are a photographer, you need certain equipments or certain specifications of that specific mobile phone to be at the higher standard so that you can go ahead and meet your requirements according to that. When it procure that specific hardware and if it doesn't have that specifications, that means that specific hardware which has been procured won't be deriving or won't be giving you the required output. So this is the hardware oriented procedure. Second procedure that we follow is software oriented procedure. So when we understand any kind of software oriented procedure, we need to understand what do we have when we have software orientation. Any requirement that has been parked will be based on certain software. For example, the Windows that has been used in the desktop, if that is something which is as per the late if that is something as per the latest procedure or the latest updates, then that will be a bone or a probable thing that we can say that this specific software is usable or these specific windows are usable for these kind of softwares. Similarly, any kind of specifications which have been mentioned in terms of software should match the hardware as well, because if your software is old and if your hardware is new, and if that software is not compatible with that kind of hardware, your results won't be delivered or the output won't be delivered to you. Third is the integral software or integral orientation, which is a combination of both, ensuring that the hardware is as per the specifications and the softwares are meeting that hardware's expectation or the requirements of it. That's the reason when you talk about smooth inflow of that, this is when it happens when both the hardware and software meets together and there's a smooth flow of the results which are supposed to be expected or which are supposed to be derived. Now let's understand what are the details or what are the other components of it. Now after procedure we have data. Data is nothing but the facts that represent numbers or any kind of figures that we have. Now, numbers and figures are something that accountancy has been playing in since long. Accountancy includes numbers and names itself. So the data that we have will also be the fact that the numbers and representative names are mentioned in that specific thing. Now, there are certain points that have been mentioned down here. Let's note down all those points for your reference. Now, this specific data is gathered and entered in the computer system. The numbers and the text that we have, we further go ahead and input that thing or gather that thing and further go ahead and collectively input that thing into the system that we have. This specific data is then further analyzed and then retrieved when it comes to any kind of specifications that we require. So when we talk about data, we talk about analyzing the data, interpreting the data, and then communicating it to the users. There are different methods that we can do that. We'll study about those things when we understand the part 2 of it. Now, this data is supposed to be procured or analyzed in the kind of predetermined sets of codes or predetermined series of codes. We have certain predetermined series of codes. According to that itself, we have to go ahead and analyze the data because we have a specific software which runs on predetermined set of codes. According to that itself, whenever these numbers and text are filled in that specific thing or that specific software, the result or the output is according to these predetermined codes itself. If you make certain changes to these predetermined codes, the output will be different and it will be as per your requirement. So if you want certain changes to be made in that, you can go ahead and make changes in those coded languages or those coded series, and you can further analyze whether that specific data which is giving you the output is as per your requirement or not. So data is one of the more important concept or probably one of the most important concept when it comes to reports and analysis. Now, connectivity is one of the most and the sixth element of any kind of procurement or any kind of software updation that we have to. So, this is the sixth element that we're talking about. Now, this shows the connectivity of data via satellite phones, via microwaves or microwaves lens technology that we use, or any kind of telephone wires. So, telephone lines, microwave satellite energies, or satellite links, all these things are used to connect the data via different spaces. So while you sitting here, you can transfer this data to some other country, some other location, maybe some other system which is into some other location using these kind of connectivity things. Had it been that if you just had the software and you had no technology where you can connect that data or send that data to some other location, the data wouldn't have been that useful because the other person out there or the other organization out there wouldn't have been able to go ahead and procure the data on real-time basis, which would further help them analyze on the current situation which is there in the organization, or the organization data which has been stored with them or shared with them would have been able to use or wouldn't have been able to use according to the situation that has been. So if the connectivity issue is persistent, or if there is connectivity issue due to which there is no data storage or no data sharing that is available, all the data that you have is completely useless because that organization which has given you that specific contract of sharing data, and that's the reason if that data is not shared, there is no analysis, no interpretation on a real-time basis, which further then declines the opportunity to make any kind of decision on real-time basis according to the current market situation which is going there. So these are the six important components that we have to understand about when it comes to computers in accountancy process. Let's understand what are the details that we have when it comes to computer usage in accountancy. Now, what are the capabilities of a computer system in accountancy? These have been mentioned down here. Let's understand each of them one by one. We have speed. Speed is one of the most important thing when it comes to any kind of data procurement, any kind of data sharing, any kind of data analysis. When we talk about speed, the reason why we use computers is because we get our job done in minutes and not just in hours. We don't take hours to get any job done, to get any reports analyzed. We do that in minutes. Why? Is because the computer works on a specific system on certain predetermined codes, and that's the reason when we have softwares which enters or properly take in the data, which then procures or probably then goes ahead and further analyzes the data, into segregation of different kind of parameters. Due to these segregation of parameters, we further analyze that whatever data we could have been able to search down or narrow down due to our usage, or probably something which is related to a human brain, that thing would have been done in quite number of hours as compared to the same data being used in a computer due to series of coded language and the parameters which we are supposed to use, and the same thing is being used in a computer that is done minutes, because there's efficiency in here, there's speed in here. That speed is not available with us because we are not that good with numbers when it comes to any kind of data handling at a huge organization or at a huge parameter. So when we talk about numbers or accounts which are innumerable to us right now, that is done by a computer in minutes for us. So that's what we need to understand. Speed is the most important criteria, which is the capacity of any kind of computer. Now, next, understand what is the next part or the next capacity or the next feature of it. Why we use computers in accountancy is the next reason. Accuracy. Now, when we talk about accuracy, we might be good with numbers. As a human brain, we have developed the computer, so that means we have that algorithm within us, and that's the reason we have been able to define or derive a specific system which can be used for our usage itself. So when we talk about accuracy, we might be good with numbers. However, when we talk about huge number of data piled up in front of us and then we have to total that down, we might make some errors. And that's the reason we have computers which are running on a predetermined set of codes, and that's the reason we can assure you of the accuracy unless and until you have not plugged in the wrong formula, or unless and until you have not plugged in the wrong amount there. So when all these data, or there is no discrepancy in the raw data itself, that means all the output is arithmetically accurate. Now let's understand the next part of that. Reliability. As you have accuracy there, that means you can rely on this data. You can ensure that this specific data will be flawless and can be used on real-time basis when it has to compare, or we have to compare this specific data with previous years or financial years of the current year to make any kind of real-time basis decision. That's the reason if there is accuracy, there is reliability. Versatility. Now, when we talk about versatility, we as a human, we can process one function at one specific time. We're not good with multitasking. Even if we are, there are certain flaws that can be made. However, when you talk about computers, if you're running one specific application here, simultaneously, you can also run different applications there and work on them. So that's the versatility that has been offered by this specific computer system. And the same thing at one specific time can be done using multiple applications. So if you being a human are doing one thing at one point of time, the same thing computer does, multiple applications or multiple usage or multiple things are done at one single point of time. So that's the reason we have versatility when it comes to computer usage. Now, the next part is storage. We as a human brain where we can store in a lot of data. However, there is a certain restriction to it because we deal with different numbers, we deal with different kind of accounts, we deal with several of numbers of accounts that we have to deal with day in day out. However, this thing is made easy for us because we have computers that can store in humongous amount of data for themselves and can be used for future references. So as compared to the human brain, we have different storage parameters in here, and that can be safely stored in without being scared about whether we'll lose that data from our brain, just like that, or will it be able to save that data in an encrypted format which cannot be then further decoded by any other person unless and until he knows the coding language, or unless and until he can decode it using any kind of decoder. So just like that, we have encryption, we have storage which is safe and sound. So these are the features or the capabilities of any kind of computers when it comes to accountancy system. Let's understand the limitations of it. Now, as you know that every system has its pros and cons. We have already known about the pros of a computer system. However, there are certain cons that we need to understand when we have to deal with any kind of computer system. The first con has been mentioned down here. Rather, there are different cons that have been mentioned down here. Let's read them in detail. Lack of common sense. As we have discussed about the algorithm that we have, and that's the reason we have derived that specific system of computers for our usage or for our benefit itself. The same thing, we don't find that in computers. There is lack of common sense because there is no algorithm which is foolproof. And that's the reason whatever data has been shared is based on the basis of any kind of predetermined sets or codes. If there is any mistake in them, it cannot reiterate or it cannot rectify it on its own. We have to do that part, and that's the reason there is lack of common sense. The next part is zero IQ. Computers are dumb. They cannot visualize and they cannot think just like a human. The way we are being creative, that cannot be done by a computer. And that's the reason we are the sub processors who go ahead and make it more creative by using our technology or using our mind, which then further evaluates or further creates different kind of reports, and then which is specialized or tailor-made according to our requirement. And that's the reason the next limitation is that we have zero IQ here. Let's understand the next part. Lack of decision making and lack of human touch. So these are the two important things. Decisions cannot be made by the computer. It can just give you the results because there are certain preset codes which have been mentioned in the software itself, and due to that specific thing, whatever data you input into it, there's an output to it. Now when there's an output to it, that doesn't mean that you will be able to make decision because that specific thing is providing that data or because that computer is making this decision. That decision making thing relies on you, and the reason why you're making that decision because you have that data, those facts and numbers which are being derived from a system based on the predetermined codes that you have yourself inputted in that system. So basis on that specific software analysis, only then you will be further able to go ahead and make those decisions. This thing is not available with the computer. Decision making, lack of knowledge, and any kind of further analysis cannot be done by the specific computer, and that's the reason you are there in place to read those reports, to analyze those reports, and then make the decisions. So these are the limitations of any kind of computer system that we have in our accounting system itself. Let's understand what do we have else in this specific topic. Now when we talk about components of a computer system, we actually understand how a system works. I've derived a chart here. Let's go ahead one by one on that. As you've seen, I've mentioned 1, 2, and 3 in here. 1 is the input, whereby hardware systems are used to input the data. For example, mouse and keyboard are used to put in the data into the CPU, that is the central processing unit, where the data is further processed, and then you can go ahead and make use of any kind of algorithm that is being installed in it, or any kind of memory storage that has been pre-installed in it, or any kind of sets of codes or series of codes that have been already pre-installed in that. According to that part, the second phase would be the central processing unit, which then further goes ahead and processes the data as per your requirement and as per the specification the hardware is. So the speed, the accuracy, the reliability completely depends on the kind of processors, on the kind of central processing unit you have. If the processors are pretty outdated, that means you'll have to spend more time getting that data. If the processors are completely within the date or as per the latest models and requirements, your data will be in your hands within no time. And that will happen with the display option. That means when you have input system from which you mention that data or you put in that data into a central processing system, that data is getting processed in the CPU in the memory unit and then further is displayed on the output part. That means the display system being monitor. So when you have the monitor screen in front of you, whatever results are being shown is because that's a display output system, and that system is getting displayed with all the data which has been processed in the CPU, that is the central processing unit. So these are the three main components of any kind of computer system. First, input; second, memory storage or secondary storage; and the third will be the output system. So in input you have mouse and keyboards. In any kind of secondary system you have memory unit or probably central processing unit which has certain ALU, which is the algorithm. The second part will be CPU. CPU is the central processing unit and the memory storage unit. Apart from that, you'll further have output systems whereby you'll have displayed of all those data, which will be in the form of data being displayed on a monitor. So when you have to deal with systems, you have to first input the details, which is then further processed into a CPU and then further gets displayed on the memory output or probably the display output that we have, which is also called as a monitor. So when you have to talk about data, there are three things that you need to understand or you need to mention when we talk about data. First is the components, that is the hardware, software, the people, the data, and any kind of facts and data numbers that are available. Second is the method that you're using, hardware, software, or integrated method. Third is the output system that you're using. That means again a part of hardware itself, whereby one hardware gives you the data or the availability of making data available for that specific central processing unit, and the next part will be the display of that specific reports or the display of that specific output. Where will you see that thing? It will be shown on a monitor. So this is all we need to understand when it comes to preparation of components or the first part of introduction of computers to accounting system. We'll have few more details of these things of this specific chapter itself in the part 2, and we'll understand that in the part 2 itself. Thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned with Ekeeda and keep subscribing to Ekeeda.